events. The first one, if you haven't heard it yet, we're going to have one song and 300 people coming together to sing for peace. That's going to be on March 4th, 5th, and 6th. 3 rehearsals that you have to attend, because the main reason for this, as we sing for peace, is for all of us to meet new people and make new friends. And what's a better way of making new friends than through music? So for this song, the first thing that I did, I went to Mr. Ortiz, who is PJ's boss, TV6, and I asked him, okay, this is what we want to do. Where do we start? And he said, well, you find the song. Then I said, so how do we go about it? And he said, it needs to be either older than 75 years or you have to get permission. So we searched and searched and searched, and we found a song that perfectly speaks of the mission of community bridge builders. But it's almost a new song, about 15 years old. And I found the name of the author, so I checked, found his email, sent him an email, and I said, oh yeah, sure, he's going to answer. About half an hour later, an answer from the writer of the song. And I explained to him who we are and what we want to do. And I asked, could we have your permission to use this song and videotape it? And he said, not only do you have my permission, but I want to be there too. So he's going to be part of our choir. He's coming from New Jersey. And then we said, okay, now we have the permission. What do we do next? Next, we have to find a choir director. And we didn't want to offend any of the multiple choir directors here, so we decided to go outside. And we found a brilliant young choir director who is actually the director of the choir of the Unhoused in Los Angeles. And he's coming to direct our choir here the 3 days and then the videotaping. And then we have the orchestra, and the orchestra is composed by musicians of Laguna Woods, and the 300 people choir, all residents of Laguna Woods. And we're getting close to that number, so if you haven't enrolled, all you have to do is send me an email, I'll register you, and I'll send you the song so you can fall in love with it too. There are going to be refreshments the 3 days, but you have to be there in the 3 rehearsals because we want you to meet new people and make new friends. That's the whole thing. After this opportunity, this is March 4th, 5th, and 6th. On March 18th, let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt trapped throughout the years because you either witnessed something or you got some kind of an offense where you stood there and didn't do anything? Well, ladies and gentlemen, now you will learn what are you supposed to do instead of standing there as a bystander, because we're having the Human Relations Committee, now called Groundswell, coming to talk to us about what do you do instead of feeling trapped. So that's March 18th. How about this evening? Well, let me just show you the flyer for the 300 voices. If you want this flyer, you can take it at the entrance. What about tonight? Tonight is a super special evening. We have 4 residents of Laguna Woods that go about their lives doing all kinds of wonderful things, but they're also poets. And in the poems that they're going to be sharing with you tonight, they open their hearts, their deepest feelings, and allow you to see how it feels, what it is to walk in their shoes. My friend Judy Northrop, whom I call my soul sister, sent me an email she received that I consider perfect for this evening. And with your permission, I will read excerpts of what Marilyn Turkovich wrote to her and others. It's called It's Time. In our complex, dynamic, and ever-changing world, the path from tolerance to true acceptance requires intentional effort, self-reflection, and a commitment to dismantling barriers. We need a new attitude towards others, especially to those who seem to be most different from ourselves. The time has come to recognize that we must consider thinking and acting differently in order to move beyond the superficial level of tolerating each other to embrace, accept, and create equity in a world that is constantly reinventing itself. For too long, we have been advised to be tolerant of differences. In her opinion, and I believe that 100%, that was wrong advice. Tolerance implies a passive coexistence. It's time to burst the tolerance bubble and replace it with acceptance and appreciation of one another. Obviously, this is not so easy if we rely on the comfort of doing the same old, same old. True acceptance thrives on curiosity. Instead of judging differences, isn't it time to ask more questions, deeper questions? And that's where you're coming in tonight. Most likely, this will lead to new understanding and bring a new richness to our perception. Cultivating a genuine interest in others' stories and experiences might lead us to a new way of interacting with each other and potentially a new way of acting in the world. You cannot move towards acceptance without a commitment to active listening. That's what we're doing tonight. It requires a conscious effort to listen to and understand others without the filter of preconceived notions. By creating spaces for open dialogue, we build bridges of connections, community bridge builders. Actively listening to diverse voices is a powerful catalyst for dismantling stereotypes and fostering mutual understanding and respect. I have been excitedly waiting for this event. Let's carefully listen to these four poets as they invite us to walk in their shoes. So this is the plan for tonight. I will introduce the speakers. They will read their poems. Marcy, who's sitting here, but she'll be here, will invite you to ask questions directed to any of the four poets. And after they answer, you will be invited to speak to your table partners about what you heard and how it felt. And for that purpose, we have here our thank you community bridge builders note, where if you feel something tonight, we ask you to come and get one of these, to write your name, and to give it to any of the four poets, letting them know how you felt because of their poem. Many times, artists such as this go home without getting any feedback from the public. Now is our time to let them know how we felt. Because, as I keep repeating what Maya Angelou said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So we're going to start with Audrey Osborne's words. And I asked the four poets to tell me something about themselves or anything that they wanted to tell you. And instead of reading long CV resumes, and this is what Aubrey said. I recently completed a master's degree in theology at Xavier University in Louisiana. I hope to educate others about the gift and complexity of living the life of a disabled gay man of color. By doing this, I try to inform others and thereby liberate myself. I give you Aubrey.
Thank you, Rebecca. This is a prose poem and it's entitled going up against the grain. It is so hard in a world not made for you. As the poet Langston Hughes wrote, my life ain't been no crystal stair. My question to Brother Langston is, have you ever had to navigate stairs with a pair of crutches? What if you had a wheelchair? I have both. It ain't easy. I've had to crawl upstairs and drag my wheelchair beside me, or scoot it up backwards on my backside, one step at a time. It didn't matter that the Americans with Disability Act was signed in 1990. Accommodations for someone like myself were won by protest, by laying in the street, sit-ins in Washington, D.C., San Francisco, and our state capital of Sacramento. It took legislation for me to go to the area high school in the early 1980s. I was 15. When you see me, do you see my wheelchair first? Why do you look past me or talk over me? Do you know I wanted the same things everyone else does? When I came out as a young gay man, I had to claim my desires and declare I was a part of this community. But it was hard. I didn't see myself reflected, but I was determined to be a part of it. So I got myself on a public bus and took myself to my first gay pride parade. As I was among the people, I began to claim my tribe. I gazed upon the vision I had always dreamed of. Two men, one being pushed by his partner, his lover, and one in a wheelchair. I began to cry. They saw me, went up to me and asked me, "Are you all right?" And I said to them, I never thought I'd see myself reflected in such a way. They simply said, "Welcome home." Thank you for your time.
We will do the questions later on for the four poets. Next, I want to introduce you to Mr. Charlie Becker. And in his own words, he says, I have lived in Laguna Woods for 4 years, and I'm grateful for its diverse, multicultural community. I am an LGBT senior, retired speech pathologist, and published poet. I give you Charlie Becker.
Thank you, Rebecca. What I still believe. I wanted biceps big like yours, with a hula girl tattoo who danced when I flexed, and mighty forearms of steel, real threats to the bullies who chased or lied to me. I wanted your strength, your rich green spinach. I'd watch you squeeze open the can with your bare macho hand, swallow it all in one gulp, and then take Brutus down without sweating a drop or losing your gritty grin, scratchy manly chuckle. I wanted your punch, Popeye. I needed you to teach me self-defense. I longed to be your forever buddy. Puff, too. He lived by the sea and did magic tricks for little boys, the way dragons can. We, fearless, frolicked in the autumn mist, best friends, and sailed free on billowed boats, far from taunts or cuts of mean kids who didn't care for fantasy fun or innocence. I needed you, Puff, your spiked tail, your commanding roar. For myself, every time I left home, thinking I was all alone. Sure, I lived the life of Superman long before I knew Clark Kent. me growing into a secret, not a bird, not a plane, stealing my face, hiding what no superpower could fix or overcome. I needed you, Superman, your rock-square chin, your smiling sureness. Each day is my world, where cowboys fell in love with other cowboys, seemed in danger of being crushed. Oh, but in the end, I found you, mortal, imperfect, Fred Rogers. Me hopelessly fearful, like Daniel Tiger, wondering where my next breath would ever come from. Mr. Rogers, you welcomed me into your neighborhood, looked me in the eye and said, I made your day a special one, just by being me. I put on Fred's cardigan, wore his navy keds, and took from him a voice, softly sincere, for my own use, the way a real hero simply must, to tell the truth, move on, and save the world. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Shari Horn. In Shari's words, I am Shari Horn, a woman, a survivor, happily married, and I have the honor of serving our community on City Council. This poem was from another time, but it is part of who I am today. I am a member of Community Bridge Builders to be part of something good and kind that can make a difference for people. Small act of kindness can have huge effects.
The DA's Victims of Violent Crime Division reached out to me with the offer of therapy. My therapist worked with many survivors of domestic abuse in shelters. She helped save me. I had been working with chronically psychotic and schizophrenic individuals, and it was my training in de-escalation and managing assaultive behavior that I believe saved my life. This poem was written in 1995 at my therapist's request. This is a compilation of different events. I was cleaning house the other day and found a piece of me, a hank of hair pressed in a book, a nightmare memory, a memory from the other side of that unseen boundary line where madness rules and terror dwells. That reality became mine. My love escorted me across that line to the land where nightmares bloom, where escape so rarely possible and you're face to face with doom. He grabbed me from behind, his hands wound through my hair. He picked me up and threw me down, and after me, my hair. The bloody bits of hair and scalp he'd ripped out of my head. Pick it up, he said, and throw it out. But I saved one instead. Down first one cheek, then the next, the blade traced without rest. Blood was slowly following steel like teardrops down my chest. Each moment an eternity, as on and on time rolled. I kept expecting to feel the blade stab hard and long and cold. He wanted me to turn around, to turn my back to him. But I could only stand and cry and beg him, why, oh why? He said he was going to kill me, but he'd said that before. If you're going to kill me now, but torture me no more. I know it wasn't courage, but the paralysis of fear that kept me trapped and hypnotized like headlights to a deer. He threw the knife down at my feet and said to pick it up. Bitch, pick it up and aim to kill, 'cause if you don't, I will. I knew then he'd actually kill me. How could I have been so blind? No more ifs, only when. How long can I survive? So I said anything he'd want to hear, whether truth or lie, any admission, any submission, just to stay alive. So much of me was sacrificed in those times of lunacy. Pieces taken, pieces lost in the land of insanity. After a while, I lost myself, my independence and my pride. I couldn't remember how it felt before there was nowhere left to hide. The only thing that made this time different from the rest was the souvenir of hair I had kept to help me not forget. Was it really as bad as that? I'd asked myself before. He didn't really mean it. He won't do it anymore. It's all the answer that I need, more eloquent than words. Yes, it says it was that bad, the worst I'd ever had. I keep it to remember what's not easy to forget. For what we don't remember, we may not live to regret. So hold the memory close, my friend, still closer hold the fear. It's all that stands between your now and past violence always near. If you're still traveling the road to hell, bring a souvenir back with you. It won't forget or fade away like memories often do. Yes, now I have my souvenir to stand guard at the gate between what was and is. Freedom never comes too late. So when you feel that all is lost, no matter what you choose, until you've lost your life, my friend, there's always more to lose. Thank you.
Before we read, Willie reads the fourth poem, I want you to take into consideration the courage that it takes for the four of them to be here and sharing these deep feelings that they've gone through. So let me now introduce Mr. Willie Phillips in his own words. I was born in Louisiana in 1950. He's just a baby. I'm a retired pastor and the CEO of a commercial floor covering company. I've lived in Laguna Woods with my wife, beautiful Sharon, for 10 years. I added the beautiful. We love it here. I became a member of Community Bridge Builders because I love what it stands for and what its members are doing to make a positive difference by promoting equal human rights for everyone. I give you Willie.
No easy road. Life for me ain't been no easy road. I was 5 years old when I first saw my mother cry. She told me about the murder of Emmett Till and said, Herman, that's me. That's the way a lot of little black boys die. When I was 8, a so-called white man in his 50s slapped me down and called me a nigger. Something started burning on the inside of me. I sure wanted to pull a trigger. I always saw stuff my peers just didn't see. I always thought, this ain't the way life is supposed to be. I never saw my granddaddy really happy. When I was 9, I saw white men beat, burn, and hang my great uncle's body from a tree. Billie Holiday called it strange fruit. But it wasn't strange to me. When I was 17, they did the same thing to my classmate. By that time, I was angry, confused, and plumb full of hate. Just like my granddaddy, it makes me feel really crappy. I felt like I'd seen it all. There was no one I could call. No one else would dare say a word. My voice was all I heard in that herd. In the sea of silence, I was drowning. Every which way I turned, my people were getting hosed, beaten, jailed, bombed, lynched, and burned. Inside I churned and screamed, this ain't the way life is supposed to be. I thought there had to be an easier way out. There wasn't. So I learned to stiffen up my lip and not to pout. I straightened up my back and I pulled my load. Life for me ain't been no easy road. There's been plenty bowing and scraping and a whole lot of belly aching. There's been plenty twists and turns, downhill spirals and heavy loads, and there's been plenty of rocks, hard knocks, roadblocks, haters, racists, terrorists, and biased cops. But I keep on walking this long, uneasy road. Now and again I stop and share, hoping to find some anti-racists that care. And now and again I do, but it's rare. Mandela, Malcolm, Medgar, Huey, Geronimo, Alaska, Shaka, Gandhi, Rodney, and MLK, colonizers tried to kill all our kings. Damnedest thing I've ever seen. Alabama bombing little black girls while they're praying up in a church. Louisiana killing us just because we want to vote. Mississippi caught Medgar Evers, and that's all she wrote. That's why Nina Simone was not alone when she sang her song, Mississippi Goddamn. And that's why life for me ain't been no easy road. Look, people, humankind, we must be both. I vow to God to make that my oath. So the terroristic murder of Emmett Till that made my mama cry makes me know that Emmett, until I die, I will live the truth and I will expose the lie. That's the way life is supposed to be. And I know that it's not an easy road, but it is the right road. And I choose to walk that road. And the right road ain't no easy road. Which road do you choose to walk?
Ladies and gentlemen, while Marcy comes up here to ask for your questions to any of the four poets, I want you just to take a couple of minutes to think about the not so easy roads that many of us walk, some more difficult than others. And when was the last time you asked somebody some deep questions like, tell me about yourself, and let me tell you about myself, about my dreams, about the road I walked, about my losses and my loves. How about if we do that more often? So I give you Marcy.
Good evening, everybody. As I was listening tonight, I came with my partner. He is now shoeless. I wanted you to look at these shoes. The theme tonight is walking in someone else's shoes. How many people here are a size 10? Okay, so very few of you could walk in these shoes. But tonight gave us an opportunity to take a glimpse in someone else's world, to put their shoes on. We experienced through the eyes of a poet the acceptance of a gay pride parade. We listened to how someone experiences the gay world through first bullying and then acceptance through Mr. Rogers. We entered the dark world of domestic violence. And we had a chance in the last poem to experience through someone else's eyes the impact of racial inequality and violence. We had a rare opportunity tonight, and I think Rebecca said it before, but I'd like to say it once more. I think these 4 poets deserve a round of applause for their bravery and candor. They were willing to give us their shoes to walk in tonight. Each one exposed a different world. And let me explain the format of how I hope this works out. We always have great dreams. Sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're not. First, we'd like, if people have questions that they'd like to direct to the individual poets, things they'd like to know about, perhaps delve in experience. Then, since you're sitting at round tables, did you notice? We'd like you to turn around and meet the other people at your table and share your impressions of tonight's poetry. And then after that, we'll give you not a long time. People, we know you're just all super smart and you can do this correctly. We'll give you about 10 minutes. We'd like you to report from your tables what you experienced tonight and what you'd like all of us to walk away with after tonight's sharing. Any questions, given that game plan? Does anybody have any questions for any of the poets? Don't all raise your hands at once. You know, I used to be a teacher. Okay, Pearl?
What I wanted to know,
We're going to give you a microphone so everybody can hear you.
I wanted to know, all 4 poets, are they, similar age group?
I don't know, I'm looking, I can't tell.
Well, because I'm in my 70s, and I was wondering how the age groups of these poets are.
Okay, Sandy, they want to know, are all of the poets of a similar age? Willie, you gotta tell the truth now.
Well, according to my mom, I'm 74.
73.
72.
59.
Oh, we have a baby in our midst. All right, any other questions? You have a question, Rebecca?
Hi, I'd like to know, was there an incident in your life after experiencing so much pain and doubt and fear and uniqueness, hate, whatever, all that you've been through, was there a person, an incident that helped you to turn around, to embrace humanity, to forgive, and to move on and be positive with your life?
Are you directing this to Willie?
Oh, any of them that want us.
Who would like to answer? Don't all jump at once.
I'll take a stab at it. At the age of 42, I was an atheist, at least I thought I was, and Sharon and I went by a church and we heard a preacher preaching on the radio, and he said he was about to end the broadcast, and he said, if you're in the neighborhood of 3200 West Adams Boulevard, come by and you can finish up listening to the revival in person. I just happened to pull over to stop to hear the last of the broadcast, and we were blocking the driveway to the church. We went in, and that night we were baptized, and from that moment, I began to change. The hate left, and love began to grow when I met the Lord.
Would anybody else like to take a stab? Oh, we're passing the baton.
Well, I came out when I was 28, which is kind of late because I think I knew when I was a teenager, but it was so hard for me to come out because I felt so alone with it that it was a secret that I kept for a long time. And when I came out, I was married at the time to a woman, and just by chance, we both decided that we were LGBT. So it was kind of an easier process. But I have to always give credit to my very first therapist. His name was Michael Greenstein. And when I met Michael and started therapy with him, I believe to this day that he saved my life, because he said, we're going to work together, but we'll start out by always telling the truth. And that was the most wonderful thing that anybody could ever say to me. So I'm grateful for him.
Yeah, the event that finally caused change to happen for me, there was a hostage situation, and there were like 100 police and fire people there, and they were shooting tear gas in to get this man out of my apartment. And they got him out, they took me to the hospital, and that's when the DA filed charges and got me this therapist. Her name was Gail. I also feel like she saved my life. I was ready. And I told her, I don't care if you like me, I need help. And we talked and talked and talked and talked and talked, and she saved my life. So that's how that happened.
For me, I was lucky enough, blessed to have two wonderful parents and a very supportive family. But for me, what spearheaded it was the fact that I've always been fortunate enough to have wonderful mentors. And I'm thinking about one in particular. His name was Nathan. He was a professor at a local university. And I remember coming out to early on coming out to him, and he was just so very supportive of me. And he would always say, you know, when you know who you are and how I see you, there isn't anything you can't do. And I've always held on to that. And he died of AIDS in 1994. And I remember the last time we were together, I was at his apartment, and I was crying, and he had laid his head in my lap, and he woke up, he said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "It wasn't supposed to be like this. God, I'm gonna miss you." He says, "I'm gonna miss you too, but always know that I'm with you." And I've always taken that to mean whatever happens after I'm gone, there is a paradise. And if Nathan isn't there, then there's no such place as heaven. But he was the one that inspired me and gave me the confidence to go back to school and get my undergrad at 50. And I just got my master's at the university I used to teach at. So miracles never cease.
Thank you. There was another question or yes. Wendy.
I think Rebecca's getting her steps in. So I would like to ask each of our wonderful, compelling speakers the same question. Which is the stereotype and or misconception about the particular challenge you talked about that you wish you could disabuse people of?
Wendy, you wanted like though from each speaker, if they have experienced a particular misconception about their challenge that they would like to have erased, eliminated?
Misconception or stereotype
Oh,
about themselves from their perspective. That they
okay,
talk
do you
about.
understand better now? If you have experienced, witnessed, become aware of a stereotype describing your particular challenge, how would you like that eliminated, done away with? What would you like us to understand?
Well, the question, what did you do to make him so mad? That could go away forever. Because you don't have to do anything to make somebody mad. If they can't have you, no one can. And people have to get over the misconception that it's anything that the one person is doing. The other person is acting completely from usually from their own mind and their own imagination. And so I think that's probably the only thing.
Well, you know, when Rebecca first started the meeting, she talked about the word tolerance, and I really need to have the world understand that being an LGBT person is not even something that is to be tolerated. I need the world to understand that it's no different than anything else about other people. The state of Florida makes me crazy when it says don't say gay, as if there is something wrong with it. And in my life experience, I have friends who are doctors and lawyers and dentists and priests and ministers, and we are all the same. We are all in this together. There's no difference. There's nothing to be tolerated. We all are part of the same family. So that's what I wish I could change.
How many non-races are in here? Let me see your hand. How many anti-racists are in here? Let me see your hand. There's a big difference. Non-racists are people that stand by and do nothing and let racism thrive. Anti-racists are people that live the truth and expose the lie.
From my experience, what I wrote about, as a person who lives with a disability since birth, what I would really hope people would understand, and living in Laguna Woods, we all kind of come close to the same condition, because eventually we all slow down, we all have mobility problems, impaired vision and whatnot. But what I would like to see, just a little bit more, so much more conscious consideration. You know, dare but the grace of God go all of us. And one of the biggest things that I've lived through, particularly my childhood, was the fact that people would stare and they wouldn't say anything, you know. And I used to take that in and think, did I do something wrong? You know, and I had to understand they stared because they really didn't know, and we've come a long way. What I really appreciate is the younger the child is, the more accepting they are. You know, they want to, when they see me in public, they want to see my, you know, they'll literally come up to me, ask me, you know, they want to touch my chair. I've had kids just, you know, I'll open my arms and they want to jump in my lap, but they want to take a ride. And that has really given me the understanding that with a little time, a little patience, but with communication, things do get better. but I wish we had more of an opportunity to think as a child. Because children, all they want, I was a teacher for many years, and what I love about kids is that they just size each other up. You know, they kind of look at each other and say, let's go. The first thing on their minds is, are you about my size? And let's go play. And then they take care of everything else. So thank you.
Before we go into our groups, is there any other question? Oh, I'm sorry. Sandy.
Are you of my size?
First of all, let me speak for all of us again. It's really incredible how generous the four of you have been in sharing such painful memories with a group of strangers. It's incredibly kind to help us understand. The question I was going to ask you, I don't think it's been asked, I don't hear that well. You're all in your 70s now. Do you think your experiences would have been different if you were now in your 20s, for example? Has our society progressed in terms of all of these issues in a way that's really meaningful?
I guess I'll go first. Well, a lot of people think that racism has gotten a lot better, but in actuality, it hasn't. A lot of things are different. You don't see people being lynched, hanging from trees, but there are other ways that we are being terrorized, and other ways. And I'm not just talking about black people. I'm talking about those that have and those that don't have, the ones with the power and the ones without the power. You know what I mean? There's a lot going around. One of the greatest misnomers I heard is like, let's make America great again. The era, and that is when America was great, we were slaves. So you want us to go back to slavery. Racism is alive and thriving. And when I go back to the South and when I look around, I can look in people's eyes and in their spirits, I can still see the hate is there. There are a lot of us that are more aware of it now, that are talking now. I'll just give you an example. For example, Angola State Prison used to be a plantation. The same family that owned the plantations are the wardens and the wards of the prison. I used to be on the Rotary Club with some of the owners of former owners of Angola plantation, and they said that the best thing that ever happened to them was for it to be turned into a prison, because now we still get slave labor, but we get $58,000 a year to keep them there. So that's just an example. It's just another way of doing the same thing, and unless we do something about it and stop denying the fact that it exists, it's just going to fester and get worse and worse undercover.
I was a teacher with LA Unified School District when I was in my 40s and my 50s and part of my 60s, and they had this wonderful program. It was called Project 10, and it was an outreach to all the, especially high school LGBT students. But its goal was to be an outreach to all of the students in LA Unified, and over again I said to myself, I wish that something like this had existed when I was a child and in high school, because it was very hard to be different and feel so alone. So I would say yes, things are generally better and easier, and we are all speaking more openly and freely about LGBT issues, and of course it depends where you live, and that's sad for some people, but I would say, yes, I'm grateful that things are better, and we have something like this where we can speak so openly.
Well, I kind of agree. I agree with all the speakers, but what Willie said, the good old days were where women didn't vote. where women were barefoot pregnant and in the kitchen. And I don't feel misogyny is getting any better. I feel like women are being demeaned and put down and not getting promoted. And I mean, you look at things like Roe v. Wade going away. That's a protection for women. You look at the E. Jean Carroll trial and somebody just standing there and saying she's lying. It's a witch hunt. None of this is true. And this is accepted. It's accepted. And so I feel women are losing ground. And we made great gains, but in the past 10 years, I feel that many of the things we were marching for and doing and working toward have been rolled back, and it's harder, but we just have to keep on doing what we do every day and working at it.
In that same vein, as I said, I'm 59 years old, and there are, just from my own perspective, and in the piece that I read, it took legislation for me to go to the area high school. I was 15. I'm one of 5 children. I never got the opportunity to walk or wheel to school, which was 2 blocks away. I went to preschool at 3. I would go on a school bus to be with other disabled children, which in and of itself was okay, but that's not, why did I have to go through that from 3 to 15 to go to the neighborhood school? And then as I wrote in the piece, as a gay disabled man, having to find your own image, having to be your own hero, having to find those aspects of yourself that are not being reflected back to you, but you know they exist. Having to, even in 2024, what I think all of us as the panelists and here as the audience, still having to be vigilant for our own sacredness, for our own human dignity. As I said in my piece, I wish I didn't have to go through having legislation for me to have public accommodations, to be on public transportation, just so I can transport myself, whether it's to work, to school, to the local grocery store. But there was legislation. Just like there was legislation to block 2 same-gender people who loved each other for years. But legislation had to happen for those 2 people to be legally married. So as far as we've gone, we still have so far to go. Thank you.
I think we're ready now for our group meetings. And I want to change the assignment slightly. We have listened to 4 people who have permitted us to walk in their shoes. What I'd like you to consider is what message, 2-part assignment, what message did you take from tonight's presentations? And then, is there somebody at your table brave enough to talk about what they have experienced walking in shoes with a challenge? I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. When I was thinking about coming tonight and walking in somebody's shoes. One of the biggest problems that all the political commentators are talking about is immigration. I had a grandmother who was a very, very angry woman. Even as I was growing up, as much as she loved me, she was angry. And as I got older and I walked in her shoes, I began to understand where the anger came from. She came to this country when she was 15 and a half. Her husband had come the year before. They were from Crimea. None of her family was able to come to this country. And when she was here, she had 6 children. And she worked brutally hard raising 6 children. In understanding her anger, and also understanding what it means to be an immigrant in our society, I have developed, I hope, a greater empathy for the plight of people who come to this country as immigrants. If there's somebody at your table brave enough to discuss what they've learned walking in someone else's shoes, we'd love you to share that, and hopefully you can tell us at the end. You got 10 minutes, and I'm timing you. Okay, everybody. I don't want to put people on the spot. This is clearly not school. And so I only want, if you have somebody at your table who would like to report about their impressions of tonight or an experience they had walking in someone else's shoes. The 4 people who were up front were very brave. Do we have somebody in the audience who is very brave? Rabbi. Rebecca, do you want to give the rabbi a microphone? Yes. Here you go.
I would say another 20 minutes.
I was about to share this with my table. When talking about walking in someone else's shoes, I grew up with a couple of friends who were blind. And I talked to them at the table that accommodations are often made for a blind person. But if somebody's has visual challenges and is not considered blind, all of a sudden there aren't any accommodations. You have to be the extreme to get the accommodations. But what I didn't share was, we would go out for lunch. Do you know how many people would say, what does he want? What does she want? They don't talk to you if you're different. If you have a physical challenge, that means all of a sudden you can't think or speak for yourself. And I walked in those shoes, and many times I would say, why don't you ask him? Why don't you ask her? Why are you asking me? I still do.